Hello and welcome everyone to a brand new episode here on the channel of r/MaliciousCompliance. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do, however, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Our first story of the evening is 27 days old, and it's called Reconsider Working Here If I Want to Take a Honeymoon. Okay. I had a manager who hated reading emails and would miss important issues/meetings because of it. I even suggested text-to-speech to make it less unpleasant, but he told me off. He spent a lot of time playing golf with clients and was mostly inaccessible. It got to the point where most of the team CC'd me. I was next on the totem pole, so I could grant approvals for stuff like expense reports and help out on projects my manager was supposed to work on. When I was getting married, I requested 3 weeks off for my honeymoon. Everybody knew I was getting married. Manager even congratulated me on the engagement when it happened. I had 5 weeks vacation accumulated and didn't think it would be a big deal, especially since I was requesting it nearly 8 weeks in advance. Then a vacation request denied email comes in from our time off system. I emailed the manager, following up, left voicemails, and after a week he finally replied to an email. "Look, we need dedicated people. If you think you can take 3 weeks off for a vacation, you need to reconsider your position here." Keep in mind, my request stated, vacation request for honeymoon. I replied with no consideration needed. My last day will be, insert date 3 weeks from now. Let me know about transitioning duties. I forwarded this to HR, CCing manager, and HR sets up my exit interview, but HR tells my manager to set up transition for my responsibilities. During my notice period, I even replied all to his email twice, asking about transition plans, since I didn't get any transition plan. I tell my team, they ask manager what to do with my duties, and manager says he'll think about it, but doesn't do anything nor email anything out. 4 weeks later, I get a call from my old boss. "Are you planning on coming in this week?" "Why would I?" "Because you work for me." "Not as of last week." "Stop messing around. Get your ass in the office." "I told you my last day when you denied my vacation request." "How about giving proper notice and transitions?" "HR asked you to develop a transition plan and to attend my exit interview. It's not my fault you don't read all your emails." I hang up and block his number, but screenshot the call log and sent it to HR contact with an innocent, "Should I be worried, old manager? Thinks I still work for him?" Fallout. Things went from bad to worse for my old manager. Apparently, I was doing most of his managerial duties, so he actually had to try and get stuff done himself. He also got into some legal issues. Those client golf outings? He played golf, but not with clients. That made his termination with cause, so he had no severance. I ended up at a competitor with a nice bump in pay. I wanted to start after my honeymoon, but new company really wanted my help on a pitch. I joined for several weeks, reworking a third of the pitch, and then went on my honeymoon for 3 weeks. They paid me for the entire time off. That garnered a lot of goodwill from both me and my wife. I only left the company because Mrs. and I moved cross-country and they didn't have remote positions back then. Thank you for the awards. I don't know all the details, but I know old manager had to hire lawyers to deal with legal issues related to his dismissal and the expenses. Clarification, this happened in the late 2000s, and Mrs. and I are still married. Our next story of the evening is 1 month old, and it's called Don't Want to Sit Inside Even Though a Storm is Coming. Okay. This happened to me a few years ago, and I just remembered it recently. I was working at a restaurant waiting tables in a very affluent area on the Jersey Shore. We had our fair share of entitled people who were under the impression that if you throw enough money around, you can do whatever you want and treat people however you want. And when your income depends on their tips, you kinda just have to deal with it. The restaurant had an outdoor dining and bar area that overlooked the ocean with an amazing view. During the summer, it was pretty much where everyone wanted to sit rather than our indoor dining area. And for anyone who works someplace with outdoor dining, you know the one monkey wrench that can ruin a very profitable dinner shift: the weather. No matter how accurate the forecast says it's going to be, you can never know for sure. For the most part, we never had an issue because if it started to abruptly rain, there would usually be more than enough room inside for all the people who were sitting outside to move in. It's usually a clusterfuck to keep track of which table moved where, but we always handled it without any issue. Until that one day. We had a large party booked one day in our indoor area that took up more than half our tables. A 50th birthday, I believe. So our indoor capacity was limited. And even on top of the party, there was a customer who was weary about the weather, so they decided to sit inside also. Then more and more people started sitting outside. My manager did a quick assessment and realized that if it started raining, we would barely have enough room inside to accommodate everyone who was sitting outside. He told us we had to stop seating our outdoor area and start recommending everyone in outdoor areas to move inside due to the impending weather, just to be on the safe side. Everyone's weather app was saying there was a downpour coming up on the coast. Everyone was okay with this. Except I had a table of 9 people who seemed fairly middle-aged and very wealthy. Margaritas with top shelf tequila, gaudy-looking jewelry, etc. Each end of the table seemed to be in their own conversation, not paying attention to the other. Upon hearing about the incoming rain, I go to the woman whom I thought was in charge, as she had the fakest tan of them all, and I tell her, let's call her Karen, "Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but because of the weather coming in and our limited seating inside, I'm going to have to move you folks inside so you don't get caught in the rain." This Karen is so entrenched in her conversation, she doesn't even register that I, a lowly waiter, was talking to her. So I try again. "Ma'am, I'm sorry for interrupting, but..." She cuts me off, exasperated.
What? What are you saying?
I begin again. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but because of the weather coming in and our inside filling up, we need you to move inside. We have a table ready for you, and I can move all your drinks and everything for you." She snaps back with,
The only reason we came here was to sit outside. We'll deal with the weather.
I realize she doesn't grasp what I'm saying, so I try again. "Ma'am, just in case..."
We'll fucking deal with it.
She cut me off and yelled so loudly that people on the other half of her table heard. They didn't hear our prior exchange, but only heard her outburst and went back to their conversation, assuming this must be normal behavior for her. She wants to deal with it on her own? You got it. So I began to take their orders. Filet mignons, a few lobster tails, the expensive stuff. I put the order in, and I look back, and all the other tables have moved inside because they were all rational human beings. And my table of 9 entitled jerks were the only ones out there. I heard the leathery-looking Karen say to the rest of the table,
Wow, we have the entire patio to ourselves. What luxury.
After a while, I looked inside and saw that the table I had held for them was taken by another party that had just walked in. The last available table. And just as the last butt hit the seats, I felt the best feeling I possibly could have felt at that moment. A glorious raindrop tapped on the top of my head. Oh, sweet glory! Within seconds, it went from beautiful blue skies to a torrential downpour. Everyone at the table grabbed their drinks, a little watered down at this point, and ran inside. After they shook themselves dry, they looked around and realized there was nowhere for them to sit. Most of them looked dumbfounded, like a lost child in a supermarket. Karen makes a beeline to me and screams,
We need a table.
"Sorry, headphone users." I reply, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully seated and on a wait for our indoor seating. Maybe one of the tables is on a waiting list, but a list is a list."
Well, what are we supposed to do now?
She hawked back at me, which led to me eloquently saying, "Ma'am, as you said you would, you fucking deal with it." I air quoted the fucking deal with it to really emphasize that that was her response. And as I said that, everyone else at the table realized that our interaction earlier and Karen had dug their graves. I felt bad for most of them because if they had all known the circumstances, they probably would have convinced Karen to move in. But after she raised her voice and cursed at me, all bets were off. And as serendipity would have it, at that moment their food came out and we handed it to them. There they were. 9 people in damp clothes holding a Cosmo in one hand and a filet mignon in another with nowhere to sit and eat. The rest of their party convinced her to just get some boxes with their foods, pay their check, and leave. As I hand Karen the check, she smugly says,
Well, this will be reflected in your tip.
to which I replied, Ma'am, we implement a 20% tip on parties of 8 or more. It's our policy, and it's clearly stated in our menu. She paid, and then they left with their boxed up food, leaving behind their half full drinks. Best $60 I ever made. Edit, I definitely got the numbers wrong with how much they tipped and whatnot. It was a while ago, and all I remember is the satisfaction. Well, well, well. There you have it, folks. The end of today's epics. If you like these stories, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. That way you could stay up to date with all future videos. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.